Hey everyone, good morning. It's Rebecca Undem, and you are watching Rebecca Undem Live, the weekly Facebook show to help you groove on in your small town and rock your rural life. I'm Rebecca Undem. I am the author of a book called How Mommy Got Her Groove Back, founder of a group coaching program called Groove School, and I am actually a sad vacationer returned back to frickin' North Dakota today. Hey, good morning, Tiff. So yeah, I'm kind of pissy this morning. I mean, normally I'm like, yay, I'm coming back and it's Monday and it's my people. And I am really excited to see you guys. But damn, I just felt maybe like I could have used one more full day. Because I'll just say, like, I got this big like blanket scarf on. I didn't need this in Jamaica. No, I didn't. And I get off the plane and, you know, you just, like, the woman actually said when we got off in Minneapolis, she's like, oh, it was actually Fargo. She's like, brace yourselves, you know, because there's this good gap between the door and the jetway. And you, like, step through and it just drilled you, the freaking cold air. And I'm sad, but I'll live. We had a wonderful time. Hey, thanks, Glow. Yeah, we had, and Becky, I'm glad you guys are watching together. That's super fun. We had a wonderful time, but it's like even my nails are just this constant reminder, like it's just too much for North Dakota right now. Nobody needs this kind of brightness. I'll live. It was a wonderful trip. And for those of you that joined me live from the beach last Monday, that was super fun too. So take vacations. It's good, but coming back is always hard. It's like you need a whole reentry program. So today I am excited. We're talking about our new topic for the month of February. So all of January, we talked about goals. And again, like, as I've shared, I'm not into any sort of goal setting that feels stodgy or corporate. I don't get into that at all. And so I encourage you, if you are a high achievement kind of person and you've got things that you're trying to accomplish in your life, I highly encourage you to go back and watch the episodes. They were good. We had some good discussions that came from them. This month, the theme is love. I get that it's super original because it's Valentine's Day, but we're going to talk about relationships. And the cool thing about relationships as a topic, there's going to be kind of a different layout for every single episode. But the cool thing is that what I find anyway, when I'm working with the women, especially like we get really deep into this stuff in Groove School, is that for the most part, if you are struggling with something in one relationship, and it always comes back to us, right? This is never about changing other people. So if that's what you're looking for, you may want to move on because I'm not going to tell you how to change other people because it's not how it works. But usually if there's one thing you're struggling with in one relationship, it's going to show up in other relationships. And so what's cool about this as a topic, I think, is it doesn't really matter if you're married or, you know, you've got that typical love relationship, or if you're a parent, or if you're just trying to get better at, you know, connecting and working with other people. Maybe it's in-laws, maybe it's parents. Relationships are relationships. And a lot of times we're the ones that bring something to the table. And to be able to identify what that is really important. So today our focus is about pride and how pride can really get in the way in these important relationships. And again, it could be a love relationship, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So before we get into the topic, though, I want to encourage you again to hang on until the end. If you didn't hear about the 5-day groove experience last Monday, I'm going to tell you a bit more about it today. It's a free thing, totally free, super groovy and cool, and I would love to have you guys do this with me. So sit tight and we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, so let's talk a bit about pride. And I would love for you guys to join on in and share your thoughts and ideas about this as we talk. So pride, you know, in and of itself isn't a bad thing specifically. It's usually when it becomes more ego speaking than just pride, or it becomes more arrogance than pride is when it becomes a problem, right? But pride in a relationship can become problematic, and it's because of how it tends to show up. And so really in the context of relationships, it usually rears its head when we feel hurt or somehow invalidated in some way, shape, or form. And so here is kind of what it does and why it's a problem. Okay, I'm going to just give you 3 of those, and we're going to talk about 3 ideas of how do we put our ego aside? How do we put down our pride and focus on doing what's right? Because this is really tricky. And for me, most of the time, I shouldn't even say most of the time, pride a lot of times rears its head for me in my marriage because I'm stubborn as hell. And I like to be right, and I always think I'm right. I mean, I'm actually going on record live. Like, my husband's not on Facebook, but you could totally text him and be like, she actually said it. She says she's always right. I think I'm always right. And it comes down to one of the things we're going to talk about here in just a second. But pride is a problem if the relationship really matters. You know, you can be prideful all you want if you're talking about someone you're not going to see again, because what's the difference, right? But these are those close, loving relationships. My pride also rears its head for me in my relationship with my parents. I dig down and I get really pissy and I hold on to things even when I know that I shouldn't. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. Those situations where maybe you feel slighted or you feel hurt and you're holding that over them and they maybe don't even really know it. Okay, so here is kind of why pride is a problem. I'm going to give you just 3 ideas or thoughts about this. The first is that it keeps us from focusing on what is right and clinging to the fact that we believe we're right. And this is something that, again, for me is a real struggle because I like to be right. And I think deep down we all do. Some of us cling to it more. That'd be me. I'm one of them. So earlier in the fall, I went on live inside the Growth Seekers community talking about the fact that I was really hurt by something my mother-in-law hadn't done for me. Okay. Something kind of traumatic happened in our lives. She hadn't really reached out and said anything to me. And I was feeling really crappy about it. And I was hurt, right? I was mad and so I just ignored her and didn't reach out to her for weeks. I let weeks go by without talking to her, which isn't typical for us. And that was that moment where I was like, I'm pissed at her. She doesn't even know it. And it's really not fair. And yes, I'm hurt. And it doesn't mean that my hurt isn't real. But holding on to it also just creates extra bitterness. Okay. So that's one of the things pride does, is it keeps us focused on the fact that we believe we're right instead of thinking about what is right and how to make things right. The second thing is that we think it justifies us. Justification, I think, is one of the things we're always after in relationships. Feeling validated, feeling justified in our anger or our feelings or our bitterness. And again, the truth is we all have a right to feel what we feel. But at what point does holding on to those things become the barrier to the relationship being what it could be? Instead of the thing, don't you agree with that? You guys will have to weigh in on this, but I think a lot of times the thing that originally hurt us, it gets completely overshadowed by the burgeoning, blossoming bitterness that we're holding on to. And that's our pride. That's our ego. Okay. And then third, it's actually a demonstration of an unwillingness to be just vulnerable. And vulnerability is tricky, no question. But in this situation, like with my mother-in-law, she had no idea that I was hurt. So why not instead just call her and say, especially if it's something I really want her to know, why wouldn't we just call them and say, or let them know, I'm hurt, what you did or didn't do, it hurt me. Instead, we would rather just hold on to it quietly because it makes us feel justified. Hey, good morning, Nikki. Yeah, I am a little sun-kissed, but now it's all covered up, so it doesn't freaking matter, right? Like long sleeves and blanket scarves. It's insane. I'll stop complaining about it. I got to go, so I just need to get over it. But good morning. It's nice to see you too. Okay, so those are the ways that pride really damages us when it comes to relationships. So then it's, what do we do? How do we put it aside? I will say that one of my dear friends, she had told me once that she believes ego means edging God out. And again, whether you're religious or not, that's your preference, of course. But I think that's really good, because if you can put your ego aside and put it down, or your pride, oftentimes you'll realize that, it's silly, and that not that your feelings initially were silly, but that the fact that you've held on to it for so long, and then how do you move through it? We've got to put our pride down. So here's some steps or ideas for how to actually do that. The first is we have to recognize that our pride is in the way, because we can't fix something that we don't even see or recognize. So all I would say, and obviously self-awareness isn't easy, unfortunately. Sometimes it's hard, but I think this is one of those things where we often know it. We know it deep down in our gut. And so all I'm going to say is this: if you find yourself stuck in kind of a perpetual cycle of dissatisfaction with somebody in your life, ask yourself if any of the things we just talked about are red flags for you. Like, are you trying to justify why you feel crappy about something? You know, are you trying to be validated in the fact that you're right? Because you know what? The truth is, it does feel good to be right, but not if the relationship suffers. Like, who cares, right? Again, it's about moving through your feelings in a healthy way instead of just holding on to them and letting them get bigger than the original problem. So that would be the thing to do, to stop and ask yourself, like, what am I contributing to this? And is my pride a factor in this? You know, have I articulated what I really think? Have I said how I really feel? Or am I just trying to stand in a place of rightness? Okay. The second thing we can do is to really think about what we do appreciate about the person. And again, I get that gratitude is such a simple go-to cliche kind of thing to do when you're struggling, but there's a reason that it works. Because the truth is, if this person, whoever it is in your life, you chose them to be there. Now, okay, so this is where it gets tricky with things like in-laws and outlaws, if you will, right? The people that come along with the people we love. But all I'm going to say is, you know, we have the right and we need to take control of the fact that if they are a person that continually hurts us, then we need to put a boundary in place with that person. It doesn't mean we need to kick them entirely out of our lives, but we get to control how and when we interact with people. So that's why it's so important to consider, like, are we just being super sensitive? Have we done what we need to do to make sure that we can love this person as they are? Because that's what boundaries allow us to do. To truly, like, accept the person as they are, the person that they are, the relationship that we have. That's what boundaries allow us to. Everyone is afraid of setting boundaries because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But holding on to a lot of resentment about somebody and the way they behave is way more damaging than just saying, you know, this is what I need from you, and this is how we can interact, and this is where, you know, again, you don't have to even say it all to them, but you've got to make it clear in your mind what you will and will not accept from that person. But you go back to expressing gratitude. It's looking for the things that you do appreciate. And it can be something simple and small. Like, we talked about this at length in Groove School this last month in our live coaching call. And man, we were talking, it could be something as simple as, like, God, she's got great hair. I realize how shallow and dense that may sound to you when you're really struggling with somebody, but find one kernel of something that you can just hold on to appreciate when you're really struggling. Okay. And then the third thing is seriously to remind yourself that absolutely nothing is to be gained from holding on to bitterness. Bitterness is as poisonous and toxic to ourselves as revenge, you know, like trying to get even with people. Being angry, and then I'll just say it, like, being angry at someone that doesn't even know why you're angry or that you're angry, that's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm saying that I've done it, and I tend to do it because I get frustrated that they wouldn't just know. And this is especially in my marriage. I'm like, how does he not just know at this point? Like, this is who I am. How does he not know? No matter how much we get to know each other and how tight and bonded two people become, like, especially in a marriage or a love relationship, they still aren't mind readers. They'll never become mind readers. And it's not fair to assume that they know. So putting our ego aside is part of opening ourselves up to the fact that we got to say what hurt us. And sometimes that maybe makes us feel silly. And sometimes we feel like we don't have to justify our feelings. It's not about justification. It's about explanation and communication. And that's what will make the relationship withstand this, versus just letting your pride reign supreme. One of the things I've talked about too, this idea of, like, simultaneously holding two things. There are certain things that are mutually exclusive and you can't hold both. Love and bitterness are two things that we cannot hold at the same time about that same person. So we've got to choose love. And love looks like vulnerability. And love looks like putting our pride aside, putting our ego down, intentionally saying, I'm going to put this down and pick up love and do the hard thing. The day that I had shared this with you guys, I was mad at my husband and I was mad at my mother-in-law. I was having a tough day. I was not having a great day. And I was angry that I needed to go out and see my husband in the field. If any of you watched that, I would love to hear if you remember that. It was this thing where I was like, why does it always have to be me? Why do I always have to be the one? And what I realized is that sometimes I do just have to be the one if I want to have a relationship with this person. Like, I can sit around waiting all day for him to be different or to do differently. In the meantime, all it does is it builds my resentment. It builds my bitterness. It makes me angry. And what does that do long-term for the relationship? Absolutely nothing. So I hope that this discussion about pride is striking a chord with you in the sense that it's kind of sneaky, because we also have a lot of messages coming at us telling us, like, you have a right to feel what you feel. And if they love you, they'll care. And I think they do care, but they can't, like, they don't absorb that by osmosis. We need to be able to communicate through it. And a lot of times our hurt feelings are what keeps us from communicating. We shut down. We do things that are uglier than we would normally do. And that's when it impedes the relationship. And a lot of times ends up kind of cementing that resentment as like just a standard in the relationship. Because honestly, if that kind of thing happens once and it goes unresolved, that resentment doesn't actually dissipate on its own. It just gets added to. So would love to hear what you guys think about this, and I hope that it's helpful. Again, really when it comes to actually putting your pride aside, you first have to recognize it. Ask yourself, are you feeling the need to be justified or validated? The second is to express some gratitude. Find something that you can love and appreciate about that person at that time. And then really remind yourself of the exorbitant price that bitterness plays on a relationship. And that also resentment is buildable. It doesn't just go away, because if it doesn't get addressed, it doesn't get addressed. Okay? All right. So I hope you've enjoyed our kickoff to the theme of love this month. We're going to be focusing on, like I said, primarily relationships for the next 3 weeks. So I hope that you guys can continue to join me. So let's see, Tiff, you say it's so hard to say someone hurt your feelings, right? And Tiff, I think you and I specifically have talked about that. I think about when I was a young girl, like that awful age of like 12 and a half to maybe 15, when everything was just like lit up all the time. Like my feelings were lit up all the time. And I just seriously walked around pissed off at the world most of the time. And it was because it's so much easier and more palatable to come off as angry than it is to say that hurt me and I feel hurt. Because I still think there's a societal thing where like being hurt makes you seem weak and whatever, but I don't buy into that. And I never really did. I just didn't have the tools to express it, right? So thank you for saying that, because it's so hard to say like my feelings are really hurt, because you open yourself up to that person saying, well, that's stupid. You're too sensitive. And that was a message that I got a lot when I was young, was that I was too sensitive. So of course I ended up shutting it down. Yet I think a lot of us are taught that having hurt feelings is weak and dumb and silly. Like your feelings don't serve any purpose. So just buck up and move on. But if we're honest with ourselves, it's not at all how feelings work. And I think part of this too is remembering that we're talking about a relationship that we care about. So it's not just marriages, but it's like, even you think about kids. If your kids do something that hurts you, it's okay to tell them that you're hurt by them instead of just defaulting to anger. Again, any relationship that matters or has some bearing in your life, it's worth taking the time to talk through your feelings with them instead of just kind of resorting to this BS kind of masking and covering up that makes you feel tough for maybe a little bit and then it goes away. All right. So I hope that you can continue to join me for relationships. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I just don't think anything matters more. So speaking of that, let's talk about freebies. If you have not gone out and snagged your February wallpaper yet, I highly encourage you to do so. So every single month, I will create a new wallpaper around the theme that we're talking about that month. And it is literally just to give you an extra just like hit of inspiration when you unlock your phone or you look at your tablet. And I am telling you, this month's is sweet. I love it, because the truth is the center of everything with relationships all comes back to what we think and feel about ourselves, really, and how we treat ourselves. everything ends up being a reflection of how we treat ourselves. And that is kind of a take on the little groovy, inspiring quote that you're going to find. So please go check it out. I will put the link in the comments. Also, I've mentioned the Groove Seekers community a few times. If you haven't joined us, you need to. It's a great place to hang out. Bring your girlfriends, bring your people. We really, I think, deeper connection happens there. Deeper discussions happen there. And again, like just trying to serve the world in a way that means something to me. That's where it starts, is in the Groove Seekers community. So I'll put the link to that as well. Check that out. And finally, I'm back from vacation. So you guys are getting like all of me, okay? A week from today, on the 12th of February, is the launch of the 5-day Groove experience. And so again, I'm going to give you a tiny bit of background about like what this really is and why I think you should do it. For the longest time, people called me a life coach. And I was like, oh, life coach? Like, I'm not a certified life coach. And it felt kind of non-specific. And then I think like, well, I help people in business too. So am I a business coach? Like, it's this whole idea of what the hell do I coach people through? And I've come to kind of figure out that I think what I really am, I'm a change catalyst. Like I'm a catalyst. I help you figure out how to make change. And that's exactly what this 5-day experience is about. We're going to walk through the framework that I've created to help other women, namely the women in Groove School, create sustainable changes that don't overwhelm their entire existence. Because that is a major thing that nobody talks about when we're trying to change things. You get this New Year's resolutions business happening, and suddenly it's like, I'm going to be skinnier, and I'm going to be nicer, and I'm going to be more patient, and I'm going to overhaul all these major areas of my life, and I'm going to do it all at once, and that's going to be fine. And it never is. It's totally overwhelming. You bite off more than you can chew, even in one area. And then you start to feel like a failure, and you create this vicious cycle. And so what I'm going to walk the people in the Groove experience, the 5-day Groove experience through is what change really looks like and what really informs change and how it really lasts. And at the end of that week, you're going to have a process to set like mini attainable goals that you can reuse over and over and over again in many different areas of your life. So you can come into Groove School wanting to get healthier. You can come into Groove School wanting to do something specific in your business. You can come into Groove School wanting to focus on being a better mom. It doesn't matter what your area of focus is, the process is the same. And I'm going to be there to walk along every single one of you every step of the way to help you create something that you feel like you can actually stick to. And those women in Groove School that have done it have talked about how they're sticking to it. And that's all that matters. I don't care how beautiful your goal setting process is. If you don't stick to it, what the hell difference does it make, right? So I encourage you like crazy to come out and join us in the 5-day Groove experience. I will put the link to sign up in the comments. And if you have any questions about it, all you got to do is let me know. Reach out. You can email me. You can call me. You can Facebook me. You can Zoom me. We can talk. But it is something that I really think every person on the planet should know how to do. And it's to set sustainable goals that actually become habitual. So you're not fighting your own motivation to do them all the time. It's ultimately about getting shit done. Okay. So would love to have you join us for that. It starts on Monday, a week from today. So you've got this week to get on board. As always, until I see you guys next Monday morning, groove on. And if you have any questions, you know how to find me. Okay. Have a fantastic week, everyone. Okay. We'll see you soon. Love you.